Hi, and welcome to In the Cosm. I'm your host, Canadian speculative fiction author Kat Gordon. I've started this podcast so I can chat with authors and other creatives I simply fangirl over. I hope you enjoy diving into my microcosm and feel inspired to seek out the works of these amazing humans.
Hi, I'm Kat Gordon, and today is an exciting day because it's the very first episode of the very first season of In the Cosm. I'm so delighted to have with me Canadian speculative fiction and romance author, poet, and painter Jamieson Wolf. Jamieson is the award-winning author of Love and Lemonade, which is the third book in the Lemonade series published by Renaissance Press. He's also a #1 best-selling author for his book of poetry, Living Beyond the Waves. His short work of fiction, The Descent, appears in the award-nominated anthology, Nothing Without Us, and he wrote an incredible memoir called Little Yellow Magnet, all about his life after receiving an MS diagnosis. Welcome, Jamieson.
Yay, thank you for having me. This is awesome.
I personally feel you don't do enough award-worthy stuff.
It's funny because I typically have this thing that I don't feel like I do enough. But, I write, I paint, I exercise, I work full time, and I still have this drive to do more.
I know, but you're making me tired. I see your Facebook posts. I wrote this book and that book, and I'm sending this book out. So I think you're doing really well.
I think so. Well, my husband, Michael, always says, you do more with people I know that don't have a disability or disease, So, it's all good. I just got to sparkle.
Keep on sparkling. And I do appreciate all the sparkles you've been sending to me over the last few days, because it's been a challenging time for all of us, really.
Well, yeah, we're kind of watching the world implode, and hoping that it finds a way to hold itself together.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's great to have community at a time like this as well. But I'm going to start asking you a bunch of questions because I'm sure our audience is dying to learn more about this award-winning, nominated, all kinds of stuff author. Okay, so again, I mentioned about social media, and I know you spent a lot of 2020 writing.
Yes.
Can you please share with us what you've been working on?
Well, in 2020, what did I do? So I wrote a novel called Queen of Swords. And it actually tells the fool's journey. And a tarot deck, there's the major arcana. So what I wanted to do was actually write a book about tarot, but as a novel. So it takes one chapter per card and goes through the whole story with a woman that's trying to find herself in a dystopian world. That's all I'll say right now. But I will say the pandemic actually became a backstory in the novel, which I wasn't expecting.
Oh, very cool. I had the pleasure of listening with a few other authors to some of Queen of Swords, and we were all rather enthralled. When it was your time to stop reading, we're like, what, you're going to stop there?
I have to stop somewhere. But no, it's unlike anything I've ever written before. And I really enjoyed it, and I really hope other people do too. It's currently being looked at for acceptance, so cross your fingers. I also wrote a novel called The Book of Lost Souls, about a wizard, Xavier, who's disabled on the page, and his best friend, Felicia. I almost forgot the name there for a second. And she's a trans witch. And she became more powerful once she accepted who she really was. And Xavier has to fight to accept who he is with having a disability.
Very cool. Yeah. I mean, when I think about it, like you say, fight to accept who he is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's really important as disabled folks to talk about things like internalized ableism, because it is a thing that we pretty much all of us have gone through. In your story, The Descent, what I really loved about that story, a wizard who is fighting the embodiment of his disability.
Yeah.
Can you just explain a little bit what The Descent is? Because it's such a fascinating story.
Well, the Descent concerns a wizard named Jackson, who is going to see the Oracle in hopes of finding a cure for his multiple sclerosis. And it's really, me on the page, really. And he has to make a voyage to the Oracle. And every voyage for every person is different. And so his voyage is kind of like my worst nightmare. He has to go down, I think it's 105 steps.
Oh my gosh.
And meanwhile, he's talking to the embodiment of his MS, who he has made into a character, has given him a name of Max Shadow. And that was the name I gave my MS, because as a writer, I always give names to things I do not understand. Thereby, it allows me to fight it more, if that makes sense, or easier fight. Like knowledge is power, so if it has a name, it can be killed, theoretically. So that's the whole setup of the story. But goes a lot differently than Jackson has planned.
And that's what I love, right? When there's like an own voices author writing something, the tropes tend to be circumvented, and you get an ending that maybe people wouldn't normally expect who don't have that lived experiences. So I love that. And it just kind of segues into my second question.
Okay.
You are very open about having MS and cerebral palsy. And Little Yellow Magnet was so honest, so gripping. It's very, I have to tell the audience that we have this little joke that I'm the official editor of Jamieson Wolf and you are the official Jamieson Wolf. Yep. And one of the most challenging things for me as an editor of your work is not reading ahead. It's like, no, you have to edit this now. You can't just speed read it. But Little Yellow Magnet I found particularly raw, honest. And I've noticed that more and more you've started to include disabled characters in your works of fiction.
Yeah.
Like The Descent, and you also have a character in Love and Lemonade. Can you tell us more about, what was like for you to write Little Yellow Magnet and how that influenced you to perhaps write more disabled characters in your work?
Well, it's funny. I mean, years ago, I had a friend at the time ask me, it's like, oh, are you going to ever write a novel with a disabled character? And I said, nope. I said, I write my blog 2 steps at a time. And I figured that was enough. That should be enough. And, I said to him, I said, who would want to read about someone like me? But that's the mindset that I have. And then I realized was after when I sat down to unknowingly write Little Yellow Magnet, I had the idea of everyone saying like, oh, you're so positive all the time. How do you do it with living with multiple sclerosis and cerebral palsy? And so I said, I sat down to write a book of positivity. However, that book was 28 pages. That was it, because then like, let's focus on, okay, so I do meditation, I look into my spirit, and I read tarot cards, and, I try to be kind to myself, but it's like, that's not going to make a book, So writing Little Yellow Magnet came about because I realized I had to write the whole thing, whole thing, like everything from, first day of the journey to, and not just the journey with MS, but everything else that was going on around me at the time. And so I knew it would be a warts and all book. And I don't know, most grueling year and a half I took to write that book. And it's not very long, it's 200 and something pages. But oh my gosh, it was grueling, but it was cathartic in a way, to get that out on the page. And I realized how much I was holding on to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But after writing that, it was like, well, okay, I did that, so I can do characters. I can write about people like me. I can write about my experience, not just in a memoir. But I wrote the character Zach into Love and Lemonade. And in particular because when I was trying to date before I met my husband, dating was not fun. Dating was not fun at all because in the gay community, especially, you know, if you have a disease or disability, you're discarded. You know,
Oh, that's
I'm
cool.
speaking personal experience.
Like
you know.
in your personal experience in the community that you were in, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just the way. So then I thought, you know, wouldn't it be awesome if somebody read that book and they saw, you know, a disabled person, you know, falling in love, you know,
Mhm.
like I did with Michael.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and he's a great character as well. I was really thrilled to find out that you were going to include. I think it's Zach, right? Is
Yeah,
the
so,
character?
yeah.
Yeah. I was so happy when you were saying that you were going to include that character. But I get very happy when there's more disabled characters in fiction. Period. Right?
Well,
Especially written by.
disabled people, but originally
Yes.
I wanted a disabled character in the third novel. I was going to write somebody in a wheelchair.
Mm.
But I was like, I don't know anything about that. I have no idea about being in a wheelchair. So again, I wrote my own voice, you know, so Zach is pretty much me, like as a character. He loves books, is thrilled that the guy he's dating, William, has like a whole library, uh,
Mm.
you know, and just there's joy there, but there's also determination and, you know, guts to keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Awesome.
Yay.
Oh, this is a question where, because I am going with fear and trembling into the world of self-publishing this year.
Okay.
I still love my Renaissance Press. It's just in my personal journey, I decided to revisit my very first novel, and the protagonist is an alcoholic. I am also a recovering alcoholic, and I thought, I need to get this out in the world. I just
Yeah.
passed 30 years of sobriety and such.
Yay.
And yay for me, woo. And what most people are thinking is, what? This is you sober? Um, but we were talking, you and I, the other day about what it's like to be a hybrid author.
Yep.
And for those who don't know the term, that's someone who is both traditionally published by a publisher and someone who self-publishes or is an independent author. So you are a hybrid author, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you like or dislike? What are the different, how is it being a hybrid author? What are the things you like, dislike, those kinds of situations?
I think for the most part, I mean, I love, because my writing output tends to be a lot, you know, and I know, you know, after a solid edit, like it's good stuff, but publishers don't always take it, and publishing can be as traditional, being published traditionally is difficult because that publisher is always looking for something specific. You know, they're looking for something in particular, and so they might not publish it, they might not accept it. And then for me, like I have like I write my poems, my anthologies of poetry. You know, I know those are good. I know those are great. Like you know, so why not put them out there? And it's a sense of freedom. Like I don't need to have a publisher. I can be my own publisher. I can do it myself. That being said, while I love doing it myself, my God, technology is annoying as all get out. I'm putting out my first novella, as you know, The Ghost Mirror. And,
Yes.
And the issues I had with that, trying to get that out, have been awful. But you know what? Ultimately worth it. It's like trying to do a puzzle and make sure all the pieces are trying to fit together. And then when you get the piece, it's like, yes, you know, I did that.
It's so satisfying.
That was me last night. It was just like, I was like, well, I've done this. Talking about there's an error. What error? You know, I'm yelling at my computer. And then when it finally worked, it was like, yes, you know, Michael was like, are you okay? I'm like, fine, I'm fine. So while it can be frustrating, it's ultimately gratifying.
Right.
And then, the response I get more responses from my poems and my memoir that I put out than all the other books that I have out with traditional publishers. Not saying that those books are bad, but they're really good because, you know, I wrote them. So I'm awesome. They're awesome.
I'm concerned about your lack of confidence, Jamieson. I just thought I would put it out there.
Well, my mother will probably listen to this going, well, there's that humbleness I like. Yeah. But no, I mean, publishing it yourself gives you a certain amount of power. I mean, the royalties go right to you. And it's just, there's something wonderful about it. that the whole world of publishing has changed, right? And the majority of stuff out there is self-published now.
Yeah.
There's a lot. So, and people love it. So if you love your words enough, put them out there. Don't be afraid.
Yes, exactly. And most of my clients are independent authors, and the quality of their work is outstanding.
Yeah.
And I think too that when you are a marginalized author as well, there's, from what I have been hearing, there's less of a chance of getting traditionally published unless perhaps a small press has a focus of diversity in their authors and their stories and such. I don't know enough about what it's like to be with a big publisher. I know I love my little indie, my small press Renaissance. I love them. But for me, I just like you did your first novella.
Yeah.
I really felt I had a story to tell with that very first novel I wrote in my 20s and then hid it away for a couple of decades or so. But about first things, talk to us a bit about the Ghost Mirror, because that was really interesting for me as an editor to say, hey, let's see what past Jamieson is like and what kind of stories. And I found with the Ghost Mirror that even though it was your first work, the storytelling that is so you was still there.
Yeah.
And what was the whole experience of revisiting the Ghost Mirror like for you?
It was amazing. I mean, it's been out of print since, oh gosh, okay, well, eTreasures Press, or eTreasures Publishing went out of business a few years ago. So I think they've been it's been out of print for quite a while. And I thought, well, I love this book, so I wanted to revisit it and get it out there. Because, I always want that first book somewhere out there in the world to kind of show where I started and where I've gotten to, like the growth as an author. So it was important to me to get it out there in the world. But reading it again was just like, wow. And it brought up everything. It brought up like the fact that Maeve was actually named after my cat that I had at the time.
That's true.
Yeah. And my monkey, and she was 17 when she passed away. So reading that, it was like, oh, there's Maeve. That way she's always alive on the page somehow. But then I wrote it because I was out of work. I write about this briefly in the forward, but then it brought back those memories too. And my stepfather at the time, Mark, he said, well, he's like, don't worry about being out of work. You'll get a job. He's like, you always wanted to write. Do you have an idea? Do you have a story? And I was like, well, yeah, but it's not any good. And he's like, no, you know what? Write it. Do it. Write it. And when you're done, you'll get a job. And I'm like, oh, whatever, fine. So, and I wrote it. And it was just so neat to delve into something longer than a short story or a poem. And thinking about that as I wrote this, it's like, kind of thinking, you always have to believe in yourself, like when I wrote it, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no clue, none at all, but I wrote it anyway. And it came out so beautifully. And it's still one of my favorite books, especially because of the first one, but mostly because it's awesome.
It's really, I really enjoyed it. I love the world building, the characters. It's available now on Amazon, right? The Ghost Mirror?
Yeah, Amazon and ebook. The paperback is coming soon. The Kobo version should be coming shortly. And there'll be other retailers as well.
Now, do you plan to write more sequels to the Ghost Mirror?
Well, the idea originally, I wrote the Ghost Mirror, and then I wrote my first romance novel. And like, oh, well, I haven't done this before. Let's try this, and now I've written like over 40 romance novels.
My goodness.
So those took off, and Ghost Mirror just kind of took a back seat. But I've always regretted not regretted, I've always wondered what would have happened. So the original idea was to have a trilogy of short novels, The Ghost Mirror, The Silver Glass, and The Last Witch. And, telling Maeve's whole story.
Well, I can't wait to read those, because I've been having difficulty concentrating in this last 12 months, and having a great paced short work like a novella, it just kept me engaged. And I think I love writing long works, and I used to love reading long works, but there is something really great about short works as well. Do you agree with that?
I do. I just finished The Colors of My The Colors of My Past by Laura Esquivel. It's the sequel to Like Water for Chocolate.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, so good. So I finished it last night, and at first I thought, oh my God, it's been 30 years. Like, honey, why? You never know. But it's just so beautiful. And I thought, would it lose the magic? And no, it doesn't have the setup of the recipes, but it still feels the same.
Nice.
And it's only 111 pages. So like Bing Bang Boom, I was done. I think the first day I read like 45%,
Right.
And so having that done, but then having something that moved me so emotionally, but not be this long book, was beautiful, because it was like taking a sip of really cold water that satisfies.
Lovely. Yeah. Hey, that's a great review.
Yay.
It like quenches a thirst as a reader, right?
And it did. It was all about food and love and family and magical realism still. And just about acceptance. So it was just this gorgeous book, but it felt like a big book. Like the emotion and everything in it felt like a big book in the end.
Well, that sounds fantastic. It's funny, when you started talking about like food and family and friendship and such, I started thinking about your Lemonade series, which for me was, it's like it reminds me of Tales of the City, but it has its own style, but it's reminiscent of that found family.
Yeah, well, that was the intent.
Yeah. So my question is, I know awards aren't everything. They don't actually change how good a book is or not, but it must have felt really good to win that award for Love and Lemonade last year.
Best GLBTQ book of 2019. Yay!
And that was Love and Romance Cafe, right? LR Cafe?
Yeah, LR Cafe, Love Romance Cafe, run by Don Roberto. And it was just a beautiful surprise. I was like, they always say like, oh, it was a surprise to be nominated. Well, it was. I was like, what do you mean nominated? Like, I didn't know. Okay, great. Well, let's try. Let's hope. And it was just nice to see recognition in that way. To have to win an award any way you win it is an amazing thing. But then to have a book that you spent like a year writing, that you worked hard on, it was the hardest book to write, because it was the third book of the trilogy. And it had to tie up all the loose ends that I'd left,
Right.
Yeah, and so it was just like, it was actually the first book I kind of plotted. I don't normally plot. No, I don't plot at all, because I get writer's block that way. Because the characters do what they want. They're like, no, I'm not doing that. Sorry. Like, yeah, but you have to. No, I don't want to do that. But I wrote this down. I don't care. I'm doing this. So they kind of agreed to go with me on this one. But
that's nice of them, really.
I was very thankful. But then to win an award, for a book, I don't know. It makes everything worth it, or that it's like gratification. You get noticed,
I mean, it's nice to have that peer recognition, right?
Yeah, of course it is.
Anyway, we were all very proud of you for winning that. And good for you that you now have stickers on your copies that you have.
I do.
Yeah. No,
and they're gold and sparkly,
Gold and sparkly. That is totally you.
Yep.
Okay, so now I can't believe we're getting towards the end of this podcast. How is that possible, even?
Dun dun dun.
So it's 2021.
Yeah.
What do you hope to achieve this year?
Writing-wise, I want to finish the second and hopefully the third book of the Clock Tower trilogy. And the first book is coming out from Renaissance later this year. Yay!
Woo!
Woo! And then I want to work on being kinder to myself. Because I hold myself to this ridiculously high standard. And then I can't possibly reach it. And then when I don't reach it, I get upset. and I go in like a downward spiral. And I get angry at myself because I feel like a failure for some reason. But then I set this level myself, you know. I don't know. I don't know why I do it. So I need to stop that. I need to rewire the way I think. But yeah, so mostly be kind to myself. And given how 2021 is starting a lot like the end of 2020, oh, oy vey.
Somebody said that 2021 is actually three 2020s wearing a trench coat, like in disguise with a hat on top.
There's one, Paul Atkinson is a podcaster I really like. And he said, oh, welcome to day number, 49 of December 2020, because
yes, exactly.
has ended. No, so for me, I just want to focus on spreading joy and spreading cheer, and helping to, I don't know, make the lives of other people better just by being there for them, or sending them sparkle emojis.
Yeah, and in my experience with my circle of disabled friends, we tend to be so good to each other and so hard on ourselves. And it's normally you want to tell people to treat other people the way you treat yourself. Well, I'm not going to treat other people the way I treat myself.
No. I treat everyone else way better than I treat myself.
We're tough, and I don't know if it's because we spend so much of our lives naturally having to manage a lot in our bodies that we're used to pushing through things, and then we forget, hey, it's actually okay if we don't push through this particular thing right now. We can actually go and rest. We can read a book, we can watch a show. I don't know if you feel that way.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I need to, like I said to Michael, I need to, for 2021, I need to read more often. I don't have to always be writing something. And that's the thing, and I don't have to write, my goal every night was 1,000 something words. It was like, it can be 30 words, it can be 300, it can be 20. It doesn't have to be 1,000, and I don't have to drive myself to exhaustion to do something. And I have to listen to my body more. Given the way the world is right now, especially listen to your body.
Yes, exactly. I agree. Okay. My very last question. And this is what I want to ask everybody. Tell us a fun fact about yourself.
Fun fact about myself.
Oh, you got Irish for a second there.
Okay, I appeared naked on stage. So I was back. So my degree from university is actually in theater, and I ended up doing I played Cain in the Unfortunate Human Remains and the True Nature of Love by Brad Fraser. I'm probably totally got the title of the play wrong.
We'll fix it in post.
Okay, well, I hope. But it's by Brad Fraser, and it's just a lovely, lovely, messed up play. And the director thought, well, people do get naked in it, they do have sex, but you think you're on stage, right? Well, the director said, well, hey, let's go big, go home. And so there was a lot of nudity. So I was fully frontal, fully back on stage, and oddly freeing, very freeing. It was like, doing the news scene and hearing the, oh my God, it's just like, yeah, But yeah, so that's the fun fact.
You're just so amazing. I didn't know this about you. That's fantastic. I have heard other actors talk about that feeling, that free feeling. I guess once you're naked, there's nowhere else to go from there. So
not like you can hide, Well, although you do wonder where you put your cell phone, but in a naughty place. But no, I mean, there was something about it. Something about, I think I was drawn to dramatic arts because I got to be other people and pretend to be other people. And then I realized, early on, it's like, well, I want to find out who I am first.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well put. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for coming on this very first podcast. I just enjoyed myself so much. I got lost in it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. This has been awesome.
Folks, you can learn more about Jamieson Wolf and where to buy his books on his author website, jamiesonwolf.com, and at his publisher website, wolfflowpress.ca.
Transcripts for In the Cosm are available at catgordon.com. That's CAIT Gordon.com. Thanks for joining us. Take care and stay safe.